The next session is really, really critical, and that's roles and responsibilities. And it's not just the roles and responsibilities. For instance, state law has a very clear definition of some of your roles and responsibilities. One of the most important one is that the educational welfare of the students in your charge is your first and foremost priority. Another one is that you have to act as a public body, that you can't have lone rangers going out there representing the school committee in their either going to schools or negotiating with people or working with the town council. You work through a public body. And we have two excellent presenters coming up that are going to walk you through not just the static roles and responsibilities, but they're going to be a little creative about it. They do a fantastic job. Ben Scungio is a senior partner. I'm going to have to read this, Ben, because with Brennan, Recupio, Cassione, Scungio, and McAllister. I had to get them all in there. His colleague is Mary Ann Carroll. Ben is one of the attorneys that represents a number of school districts in the state. He's done a great job representing small districts, large districts, urban districts, rural districts. He represents a number of them. He works very closely with our association and the Superintendent's Association. He files amicus briefs at the courts when it's appropriate, when we intercede on issues that affect education. So he's a great resource in the state. His counterpart, Mary Ann Carroll, who's also from that firm, has the unique experience of not only in addition to being an attorney that advises a lot of school committees, sits on a school committee herself. She sits on the Foster-Gloucester Regional School Committee, and at one point chaired, I believe, the Gloucester School Committee, and is a former superintendent. She's certified as a superintendent and as a principal. So when we talk about school governance, we have in Mary Ann someone that embodies almost every element of school governance: elected, appointed, and as a superintendent. So I'm going to turn it over to them. They've got a very active program. They're going to be walking around amongst you and engaging you in a lot of dialogue. I think you're going to really get a lot out of this particular session on roles and responsibilities. Ben?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're not asleep after you had lunch. I think that's why Tim puts us up next, because at least Mary Ann has a loud voice. Mine tends to get a little more diminutive, but she's been not only all those things that Tim said, plus she's been a teacher, she's been a principal, she's been a state representative. So one of the reasons why I'm so happy to practice law with Mary Ann is because she brings that practical experience. She has been involved for a long period of time in every single one of those type positions. So it brings a completely different kind of experience to a law firm. We're going to try to do a couple of things today, but first a couple of housekeeping things we wanted to tell you about. You've all been provided with a book. As part of this, we asked Tim to obtain these books for you. It's called How Not to Be a Terrible School Committee Person. It's a small book. It was very expensive. It was 28 bucks. It was a lot of money for a softcover book. The reason why we like it is because it contains a series of vignettes, and some of them we've pulled out, and if we have a chance, we're going to talk about them today. But it was written by a gentleman who's a psychologist, a college professor, and a school committee person for almost 30 years in California. And what he does is he compiles situations, and then he reflects on those situations, and he indicates a thought process as to whether or not the action was taken correctly or not, with some options. It's really helpful to young school committee people to be able to look and read stories from the past and gain experience and wisdom from those, which is some of the things that Mary Ann and I try to do. So we would really encourage you to, if you have a chance, pretty easy read that book. Also, I wanted to let you know that part of our presentation is based on another book called the School Board Field Book by Mark Van Clay. You can get this from the NSBA, or if you contact him, I'm sure that he can get it for you. This book is a little more formularistic, but it also provides a lot of interesting information that we think might help you along the way. So
before we begin, let me add a couple of things. I actually have read both of those books, and in some of the discussion that we're going to have today, just because it's in the book doesn't mean that we agree with with all of the information. As Ben said, Ben's been representing school committees for about 50 or 60 years. I've been doing a lot of other things.
Wow.
I've been doing a lot of other things for those 50 or 60 years. So where he brings the legal knowledge, I'm going to bring you some of the practical reality and information. So you're going to see us disagreeing on a couple of topics, but it's just to give you different points of view. As I look out amongst you and I see so many familiar faces, some of you new to this forum, all I can say to you is when I ran for school committee 6 years ago, how long ago did we run, Kathleen? About 8 years ago. Yeah, when I ran 6 years ago, because we run every 4 years, Ben said, "What are you, crazy?" And then I won. And then my next term, I tried not to win, and I was unopposed. So I'm still on the school committee. So when I see brand new people that do a lot of other things sitting here as new school committee people, I want to say to you, are you crazy? But once they pull you in, then you certainly are on the board, and hopefully you're there, as one of the former speakers says, to do what's best for kids, keeping in mind that we're elected officials, and we represent the taxpayers of the town, and we need to do what's right, not only for the kids, but we need to consider the people that put us where we are. So that's all I'm going to say right now, Ben. We can get started, but when we go back and forth and disagree, understand that it's all something that we do, because that's just the way Ben and I are.
So don't be put off by it. One other housekeeping point is I looked through the materials that were printed. Some of them are a little bit out of order. Also, I believe Judy sent you a link to my website, a back page to my website. All the materials are there. They're all sequential and they're all in order. So if you can't make through the book at any point, you can go on that website page. You can download those materials. You'll have them in digital format. It includes a copy of the 3 main statutes that we're going to talk today, and our presentation, and a couple of other materials that you might find of interest.
And one more thing that I forgot to add. We want to be here today not to bore you to death, but to answer your questions. The only way we can answer your questions is if you ask the question, because we don't know what your specific question is. So please feel free to get up at any point, and we will recognize you, and we will do our best to try to answer the question that you have.
So what are we going to talk about today? Really, we have 3 things we want to discuss with you. Review sources of authority, which means how you get your power. We want to consider and learn from those vignettes if we have an opportunity to talk about them, and it really depends on how many questions you ask and how long Mary Ann Carroll is going to perseverate. And then look at characteristics of successful school committees. Those characteristics, by the way, were drawn from 2 national studies that were done by a National School Board Association. We put them together in concise format. We don't intend to be preachy, but we really want you to thoughtfully consider the information that we present, because we think it's helpful for you to build a better school committee, which is what this presentation is entitled. Mary Ann?
So we exist because of the General Assembly. The General Assembly has created us, and the General Assembly and our authority is limited by federal and state law that's given to us. Lots of times a school committee person will say to us, well, why can't I do that? Well, you can't, because it doesn't go along with the law. So again, we're created by the state of Rhode Island that gives us the power to do what we do.
That's a really important point. As Mary Ann said, a lot of people feel that they're elected and they have a mandate from the people to do something, maybe collapse the Common Core, maybe make sure that transgender people can't go in bathrooms, certain bathrooms, all these kind of issues which are really important and you're passionate about. But you have to understand from the very beginning point that all the authority that you have has been given to you by the General Assembly. So that means they can control your authority, they can define your authority, they can limit your authority. And the very first thing you do after the election is you get sworn in. And if you consider your oath, your duty is to uphold the laws of the state of Rhode Island and the federal government. That's why you're there. And you can't violate that, which is why very often we get into controversies with our own school committee people because we say you can't do that because this is the law. But no, we want this, or the people want that. No, you can't do this because this is the law. And it can get frustrating for you sometimes because you don't realize that. So it's very important to us that if you understand the rules of the game going in, it relieves a lot of your frustration because you can start to understand in advance why you can or you cannot take certain actions.
And as we go through these statutes with you, let's remember we're looking to go forward. You may hear something today and you may say, oh my God, last year we violated the open meeting law and we had more than, you know, we met as a committee and we had a rolling quorum or we had any of this stuff. Whatever you may have done in the past is the past. We're starting today and we're moving forward. And as we move forward, we've got to worry about the fact that we're going to follow the law today. It doesn't matter what you did last year, last month. It's what you're going to do from this point forward. So don't worry about it. If we say something to you today, and you say, oh, I think I didn't do that in the past, it's the past. It's going to be 2017. You're getting sworn in again, or your new committees are starting again. We're looking to move forward.